Oh, I can unmute while the number's counting down?
Oh,
wait, what?
Dude, we're in the middle of trying to figure out what's actually going on, and Jeff kicks the live stream off.
Hey,
That's
McMurray,
a terrible idea. I don't even know. Can you guys hear me? Like, are we actually muted?
Yes.
We just hear
talking
this?
during the countdown.
No. That's got to be like we can hear each other. But
No,
so
they
this
can
is
hear it.
going
I can
live.
almost guarantee it.
Yeah, professionalism
no way
at its
that's live.
best. This is awesome,
What
guys.
the hell is going on YouTube world? I'm gonna tell y'all right now, we need a goddamn tent for this because this is a serious circus in here tonight. We ain't been on together 2 minutes and we're already busting each other's chops.
Oh my
Well, we got
God.
Stigler on here. That's the kind of names that he pulled.
Stig got here
Jeff
quick,
pulled
didn't
in.
Hey, before we get started, I put a little link at the top of the chat there. The guy's got like almost 1,300 subscribers, but he plays a lot of Rule the Wave stuff. But he's been dabbling into Hex Encounter war games, and he's really detailed on BCS. If you watch like tabletop games, this guy here does all this pre-play analysis stuff. And it's pretty freaking awesome. I've been going and checking all his videos out. So if you want to get some details, like right now he's stepping out into Last Blitzkrieg, go over and check him out because you'll get some good upfront information. And I don't mean information on here's how you move, here's how you. This guy goes into breaks down the game about here's the best way to provide defense in this certain terrain types. The guy's really, really getting deep on this stuff, and he's like I say, he's been playing a lot of naval stuff, but this one he stepped out with this over the last few months, and it's really, really
That's
good.
got to be why Jeff's involved.
Yeah, well, the link's up top there. RVT analysis, RVT War Games. Check him out if you haven't already. He's
He is really good, actually.
Huh?
He's very good. Of
Yeah,
my 935 subscriptions, he's
I don't watch none of that Navy crap, but you know.
I was about to say that's why Jeff and Todd are involved, is because there's naval stuff. Yeah.
All right, so hey, check it out. So the title tonight is Optional Rules When to Use. Now that's just the short version of the title. All right, it's not just optional rules. It can be variants. It can be core rules. And we're going to sort of, well, I'm hoping to kickstart a debate here about usefulness or non-usefulness of this crap, or when maybe to keep a rule, when maybe to add a rule, when maybe to house rule a rule or whatever, or when not to even use a core rule because you don't like it. You know my opinion about games. Give me my victory conditions and get the fuck out of my way. Oh, can I say that soon? Sorry, my bad.
It's your channel, man. You can do whatever you want.
I think there's I think in the first 7 seconds, as long as you don't say fuck, bitch, or ass, I think you're okay.
Good.
Sweet.
We weren't live when I used all those initially. So
now we're into. It's almost 3 minutes in, so we're golden.
We're good now. All right,
We're
so we got
so good.
our Popo from St. Louis, Andrew McMurray's on here. We got Todd, the itinerant hobbyist wardrobe, on here, and we got BigBoard Kev on here, which we drafted him last week, and he was just dying to get on here with us because we're
absolutely
superstars.
This is like you guys are rock stars. Oh, we lost McMurray already. Did he get shot or something? Oh, there he is.
No, we're here. I lean back in my chair.
All right, well, I'm going to fire a statement here, and I'm going to go ahead and put the disclaimer out there right now that anything that comes out of our mouths is not necessarily the opinion of our sponsors. And since we don't have any fucking sponsors, guess what? So here, I'm going to open up. Here's the gunfire. Optional rules are stupid. They shouldn't even be in part of any game out there.
Agreed. See ya.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Great show. Thanks for playing.
Settled.
All right. So I'm going to start with the first one out here. And the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is because I got some very good commentary or questioning about, as a matter of fact, a game I got from Stigler, Drive on Stalingrad. Now, this was not an optional rule in this game, but this was a rule that I decided, no, I'm not using it because I don't want to fight this damn campaign the way he wanted us to, or the way he kept changing his mind, and I'm sure you'll know who I'm talking about. The Hitler directive in Drive on Stalingrad. Okay. Why would I not want to use that? Well, I just told you why. I want to get to my objectives my way, not the way he kept changing directions on everything. So why the hell would I use that rule?
It makes it easier for Jeff.
Why would I use that rule? Give it to me. Why am I going to use Hitler directive where he's going to change all my armor divisions which way they're going? Why would I use it?
Because it makes it harder for you. That's why you would do it. because you're trying to get a more accurate historical simulation or a more realistic historical simulation. Not necessarily accurate, but realistic.
Is the keyword historical there?
Jeff, I don't know. Maybe it's not really historical, not historical accurate, but maybe historically real.
Well, yeah,
also, like you just did it because it made it harder for the Germans.
You're guiding me. You're focusing how I'm supposed to move and attack and campaign.
Yeah, because sometimes you're not the ultimate commander. If your part in the war game was to play Adolf Hitler, then you wouldn't do it.
Can you say that in the first 7 minutes?
What? Oh, oops. If your objective was to be the little Austrian corporal minus all the bad stuff, you probably wouldn't be in the Soviet Union. But I mean, if you're playing a military commander who inevitably in the 21st century probably has some sort of civilian oversight, sometimes that might add a chunk of challenge or abstraction into it. That you're just angry because Pretty Ricky couldn't pull it off, man.
But I took my victory conditions in the game. I won the game as the Germans on the offensive.
I know you did, bud.
You're going to tell me that one simple little rule is going to keep me from doing that? Because I'm going to say that one simple little rule was going to keep me from doing that. Well, you know what? I had the force to do it with what I wanted to listen to him for. He wanted me to take Stalingrad. Well, guess what? I took Stalingrad.
But not how he wanted you to. Oh. You just wanted, there's no shame in admitting that you just wanted Uncle Eric to do okay instead of falling on his face like you did historically.
Well, I did, but he was in the Crimea most of that period, I think, until we got in trouble. So come on, Todd, Kev. What do y'all think about that?
Go ahead, Kev.
He's brain. Look, he fell asleep with his eyes.
Did Kev freeze?
I think he froze because I've never seen him sit so still.
Yeah, or I thought he was angry.
I thought that too. I'm really happy. It looks like I'm not happy he froze, but I'm happy he's not really pissed off.
Here's what I thought. Here's what I see in that view. Why did I say I'd do this?
Why did I do this?
I'm going to.
I thought they were going to boot me after saying.
I'm going to freeze.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. So here's the question I have for you until we get him back. So first of all, I don't know the game. So is that an optional rule listed or is that a rule?
It is a rule.
Okay, so
you made it optional. It says
you made it an optional rule.
Right. I decided it was optional.
Okay. So you kind of house ruled that. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention that Old Chestnut says a good thing. All rules are optional, which I guess you're kind of illustrating.
Yeah.
And you're doing a good job there, Andrew.
Dang, I thought you guys were going to figure out who's frozen and boot me. Yeah, no, I told Jeff the exact same thing, was that any rule is optional if you're not a little girl about it. But he didn't like that answer as much.
All right. Now,
Kevin, I'm mad.
No, back. You're back.
Oh, back. Yeah. Well, interesting. In that particular game, I think you have like a strategic consideration that you have to deal with, right? So it's a constraint that's part of the game. So if it's an optional rule, that's one thing. But if it's a built into the system, then you've got to kind of play around. The guy's trying to give you a problem to solve. It's obviously very easy to win if you just go do whatever the hell you want. But both sides had constraints, right? The Russians could have put more forces in than Russia.
Right.
So
yeah,
you know,
very easy to win if you just do whatever you want.
Right. So like I've got another buddy who loves to do the same thing, right? He goes, well, I don't care when the reinforcements come. I'm going to bring them on when I want to bring them on. Okay. Right. So at what point do you go, here, hey, dude, here's a map of Russia, and here's all the counters that might have ever been there. You just go dick around, do whatever you want, and then play the game. Or do you want to see what the puzzle or the problem is that the designer was trying to present to you, and how can you work around the constraints that you're given? And that's part of the fun of solving the problem. Now, I think Drive on Stalingrad is kind of a half-assed average kind of game anyway, and I don't think it's very well done. There are other games that probably represent that Hitler directive construct way better, right, than it was done back in the day, right? Because it's time relative, 70s or 80s, shit was happening and they designed things a certain way, and now here we are all cool and in the 2020s, and we know everything, right? So it's different. But there are what's the name of the company? is it Hexasim that did? No, who did Roads to shoot? Liberty Roads, right?
Oh,
That's Exosim, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that has a great Hitler track on it, and the other one, their other Roads to whatever the other one is, I forget
The
what
East
it's
front
called.
one. Yeah.
East front one. They have that Hitler track that you've got to balance off, and it's much smarter, right? Because now you get to choose how much you piss Hitler off, and whether you get fired and reset and all that sort of stuff. So there's
that's
some
cool.
Yeah, so there's some aspects there that are much smarter design choices than that SPI game that you played. So
okay, so all right, so I threw that out there in what Kev just said about the puzzle of the game. Okay, I really hope one of y'all was going to say that, because that's what I was getting from other people that watched the videos about that. So throwing in or having that rule for Hitler's directives, it takes the game and it gives me a new challenge to address and still accomplish the task that's required by the victory conditions.
right.
And I did say a couple times doing this that this one will have to go back on the table, and then I play it with that directive to see just how far I can push, or what can I possibly attain. All right, so there's an argument for, and that, like I said, that was a core rule, and
Right.
even though I made my opening statement, I'm going to agree that rule should have been incorporated, because, and Andrew, to your point, yes, it made my motions easier to reach Stalingrad. And of course, when I think of these front playing Case Blue, I don't necessarily make Stalingrad in my brain is not the priority target. Those oil fields are, and then securing the northern edge of that, trying to get there. But that was the largest victory point location in the game, and it was all victory point based. So
Baku or bust, or Stalingrad, right?
Yeah. And of course, I was going to get to Baku, but it didn't matter, because once I had Stalingrad and I hit the victory conditions, it wasn't a necessity anymore. So so some of the coastal towns are. Now, what about Stalingrad 42? Todd, you played that.
Yeah, I just
did
played
that have an optional or a core rule that?
I just played the small scenario, so I didn't really probably have many options. I was thinking about those series of games. I don't think he often includes very many options in those games.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't. I think you're right, Todd. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. He wouldn't change that rule, I don't think, if he had it and if it was in there. So, no, I don't think it's in that one. I mean, this is almost going on a different line of discussion, and which might be an interesting topic. So make a note, Jeff. But victory conditions and how games are designed and what their intent is. Like to me, it says it in the name, drive on Stalingrad. So of course they're going to make it the most points. But that's really another discussion, going to kind of move out of the realm of optional rules. So I am curious, are there any optional rules in Drive on Stalingrad, the real optional rules that the designer put in there?
Yeah, there. I didn't, off the top of my head, I can't remember. It wasn't nothing that was, put it this way, they weren't so grand that they stuck in my brain like some other games optional rules do. So
aren't there 3 or 4 levels of optional rules? Because there's kind of like optional rules, throw it in and see what it does. Optional rules that I would call Chrome, that another level of detail that is maybe more complex, going to make the game take longer to play. And then there's the what if optional rules where, hey, this division could have been here, but it went to Africa or went to Siberia or did this or did that or didn't do this and didn't do that. And what if that was available? And then you have those choices. Those types of optional rules always fascinate me. I get really excited about those. I'm kind of wary of Chrome because sometimes it's more complexity and slows the game down for less. You're squeezing that lemon and you're not getting a whole lot of extra juice out of it, right? And then the optional rules that are just, hey, oh yeah, I thought this might be cool, but it wasn't allowed to be in the rule book for whatever reason, because the developer said no, or the publisher said no, or whatever.
Right. I mean, and I love to read through the optional rules of games.
Yeah.
And see, oh wow, what were they? What questions are they trying to answer here, or what puzzle are they trying to create here? So, and there's a lot, and I know a lot. There's a lot of stuff in GBA-CW pertaining to each different game. They'll have something that's optional.
Right.
Now, Todd, you've been digging at Normandy, and I know you got some stuff about Normandy. So
yeah, so Battle for Normandy. And Kev, which kind of optional rules do you like? Did you say?
Well, I don't mind Chrome as long as it works and it
Yeah.
adds value. So I know there's a lot of Chrome in that Normandy game, right? It's got a lot of stuff in it, and some of it is really well thought through, and some of it's not as well thought through and clearly not tested. But I prefer what if stuff more than Chrome.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of I mean, I think there are like 42 optional rules in here. I mean, it's a big game, so it's almost like there's room for that. But some of them just are like oh gosh, I just saw weather. Like you can do historical weather, or kind of you roll for it. So that's kind of cool. That doesn't really change. I mean, that does change stuff, but then the one thing I did like about this is like alternate air availability, and there's an A there, so it helps the allies. So he was kind of cool that in some of them, not all of them say this, but they're like, this helps the allies, this helps the Axis and that kind of thing.
And then the breakdown rules, right? I think they're optional, and where they do those incremental little units by type. So there's like a tank and an infantry and maybe even some sort of flamethrower tank unit or crocodile or whatever. Where there's those, they're just it adds more units to the map, but I'm not sure that it's like, okay, it's a 1-2 movement, 1 combat, 2 movement, instead of a 3-4 or 2-4, it goes down to I guess a company or a battalion or something.
It goes down to companies.
Right.
So, so when I played it, I just did the battalion because like I don't want to mess with a bunch of counters. I just want to.
Right. Exactly. Well, I don't think that adds a lot.
Would you be adding that air power rule that bonuses the allies? I mean, okay, I'm going to go back to what McMurray said about me throwing out the Hitler directive to make the German play easier. So the way you made that statement about the Allied air power without giving me an explanation of what it's supposed to encompass, you're saying to me, oh, let's make the Allies game easier.
Yeah. Well, it could be a balancing play, right? If you're playing against a dude that sucks, right? So, sorry, no offense to the dude, but
exactly. It could do that, or like. So what this does is it's real short. It says instead of using the subtraction of air points in the weather table, so like if weather's bad, you minus something, right? You use a different table, dividing the total number of Allied air points by the percentage listed. So it's just I'm assuming this is probably more detailed than just -2 or something, and it's 40%, 50%. So it's just more, just like Kev just said, it's just, I think a lot of these optional rules just kind of get down into granularity, because obviously Dan did a ton of research to make this game. So he's got all this stuff and he wants to do all this stuff. He's like, well, they appear to me to be just like, oh, that would be fun, then you can add it. Now, not all of them are like that, but anyway, so that was an example of a game that's like, holy cow, there's so many of them, but it's kind of cool, and
Well, okay, but in that list of butt-ton list of optional rules, is there anything? Okay, I see a lot of options. Well, I'm big G BCW. That's a given. We know that. But I see a lot of optional rules where the comment to the optional rule is, if you want more historical play. That massive list of optional rules that you're looking at there, I mean, just at a glance, how many would you say make the game a more historical representation?
Probably depends on the game, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm talking about the one he's looking at.
Actually specifically about Normandy. Okay.
Yeah. So like reinforcing the U.S. Rangers at Point de Hoc, I mean, it looks like it's trying to make it so it's a little bit more, historical. And again, it's granularity, which is fun and fine. But
is it granularity in detail, or is it? So one of the great things about that game is that it's a monster that's very playable. Like you can crank through a turn and get stuff done and get the feel for the whole campaign, and it plays together nicely. And then you start adding all this other stuff, and you're like, whoa! Now we're an hour a turn or an hour and a half a turn versus 40 minutes a side or something. It's a big difference, right? When you're playing 30 turns, right? Adds up.
Right, and that market of players that like that level, that ability to leave things, it's not quite as big. We've been having this discussion for a couple of weeks now about lightness of play, and especially like with this new stuff we're playing now. But I mean, I'm always looking at the one. And now this one's kind of comedic, but it was one of the GBACW games, and where one of the developers or designers' great grandfather was there at the battle, and if that individual, I don't remember if they had a counter for it, if it was just the unit got wiped out or something like that. His grandfather was he died, and the kid was never born, so the game never got made. Box it up and put it away. I mean, okay, you want to think historical? I guess that's a possibility. But I mean,
that's cute, right?
Yeah. It's lightheartedness and fun to put something there. But in John here, optional rules in OCS add a lot. I'm glad you said that, because I was just earlier looking at the back of Tunisia, and when you flip into the back of the book at all the optional rules that OCS places in there to make to change the play of the game, or the approach of the game, or the direction of the game. I think that it's. I mean, I like the what if too, but I'm not going to what if too many games, and I'm not one that goes back and replays a lot of games like a lot you all do. And Kev, I know you do, and Todd, you'll play multiple of the same scenarios to get a grasp on something. But I'm not that guy that's going to do that. So I struggle when I look in the book and I'm looking at optional rules. Matter of fact, it gets to the point where screw that, I'm not even going to look at the optional rules.
Yeah. So okay. So a great example. So I've played DAC. I've played the DAC campaign 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 times, and twice solo, right? So it doesn't really count. But when I played solo, it's like, we should just use all the rules, right? Because who knows when you're ever going to get back to it. And I would look at them and say, okay, well, this one gives a bump to the Allies, this one gives a bump to the Germans, so that's a wash. And then I just added them all in, because they just look really cool. I think Dean just lost his mind with that game, particularly with all the random events and all that sort of stuff. The random events are so freaking awesome in that game, but that's not optional. That's just part of the system. But my point was, I used them all, right? And I really, probably shouldn't have, but it was fun. So I don't do that all the time, but I really am starting to develop a passion for the African theater. So I enjoy digging in on it. It's cool.
Okay, so you played DAC, and I know you played some other North Africa stuff along the way.
Sure.
Just maybe not being able to recall everything, but if you were going to go sit down and play DAC or DAC 2 tomorrow, start a new thing, being as how I guess we know that one of the key failures of North Africa was reinforcing Rommel, giving him what he needed when he requested it. I say one of the key, because there's probably 5 million other. What option would you like to see? Optional rule would you like to see added into that to change that historical?
Yeah, that's a super big question, and I think I think my short answer to that is I don't necessarily agree that reinforcement was the issue. I think there were 2 big factors. One that I really didn't find out about until a couple of years ago. But the first is supply, right? So I think the interdiction by the Allies of supply and the inability of the Italian Navy to support and escort supply into locate in Tripoli, right, or anywhere else, Badia, anywhere else, was one of the biggest issues. And then the second was that this mythical, super aware, intelligent Rommel is a bit of a myth, because he had an Egyptian who was sending the telegraphs reports from the American Observer to Washington, was sending that information to the German headquarters that was coming to Rommel. Rommel knew what the plans were most of the time before the Allied commanders knew what their orders were going to be when they went to go out and fight. So that went on for a period of time, and then we had the Enigma, and then they also found out because the Brits knew something was going on. They knew there was something wrong. They found out that this Egyptian dude was doing the wrong thing because they gave fake information to the American general and didn't tell him. And that's what they worked it out, right? So So that's a really big deal. So Rommel went from perfect vision, and I'm not saying that he knew everything, right? And I'm not saying that is why he did so well. I'm just saying that it's a big leg up, right? But he had this leg up, and he went from having a leg up to no leg up, and then the Allies had a leg up, right? They because they had Enigma, and they could. Right. They could see, now they could see behind the veil. So I think that was a bigger issue than reinforce. You could send Rommel 5 divisions and it wouldn't have mattered, I don't think, right?
Well, when I say reinforce, I mean supply and everything else.
Sure. I got you. So anyway, that's a long answer. So, and it's not, no game factors that in because it's just not well known, right?
Right.
That's part of the issue, right? We were talking about this. When were we talking about this? I don't remember, but it's rather completely off topic, but it goes to show how hard it is to illustrate superior intelligence in a game. So, like, say Midway, I think that was the example. I don't remember where we were talking about it, but it'd be really hard to accurately, or accurately reproduce Midway in a game format, right? Unless you were quite literally just doing exactly what happened historically, because unless you have an idea where the Japanese are going to go, it gets really hard to, orchestrate Midway. But if you're playing a game against somebody, unless you have some rule where that person has to tell you, hey, I'm going to go up there, you're getting a lot of radio traffic up in this area, that's hard to do. So I can see where you're saying, Kev, that as awesome as that is, that'd be something that would be really hard to even optional rule in there to try and abstract that into gameplay.
Yeah, and like I said, it's in a book called the Beginning of the End or something like that. Guy up online. I'll find. I was just trying to look real quick right now, but
yeah, I'd be interested in that. What that is
now. Okay, so McMurray, that point there brings up something that when I came back into gaming. And I know it was there all those years that I wasn't playing, but it wouldn't be the complete answer to what you were just talking about. But the thing that I see in games that a lot of times they are optional, and I know most of the games that the designers say you really should use these, is the random events thing.
Yes.
Which you could probably provide some of those things like you were talking. I mean, granted, you're never going to cover them all. Unless you want a list of random events that's 20 miles long or 40 pages long or whatever. But that would be the only approach I could see.
I mean, that right now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of what might make an interesting optional rule or an interesting rule. Just getting back to our original, I agree with Kev. I think Kev put a lot of good things out, or made a lot of good points about different sorts of optional rules. And I'd agree with him that you have like optional rules. I hadn't broken them down quite into 4 categories, but in my brain, I usually split between what ifs, like things that are scenario type things, like they change the scenario. So they change not necessarily the gameplay itself, like how you play the game, but the parameters within which the game is played, right? Which on one hand, you could say that any scenario is that, but sometimes you have ones that are not full scenarios. It just changes how things work out, like optional rules, like, oh, well, maybe if you're playing a game that focuses on day 2 at Gettysburg, maybe you have an optional rule in there where, okay, you know what? Sickles is going to stay on Seminary Ridge, right? Okay, there you go. Or what have you. He doesn't advance to the Peach Orchard. But first off, terrible idea. Dan the man. Versus games or rules like I was saying that change how the game is played, not just kind of the walls or the guidelines within which you're playing the same rules. And yeah, that's a cool distinction. I tend to kind of agree that I almost prefer the scenario, the what if special rules a little bit more, just because a lot of times games are really extensively played, or good games are usually quite extensively play tested to make sure the gameplay is relatively smooth, balanced, that it's not just a blowout to one side, or that victory conditions are adapted such that if one side's at a severe disadvantage, maybe the victory conditions aren't as stringent, what have you. And sometimes the added chrome might not necessarily slow down gameplay, but it might. Usually when I've tried playing with special rules or optional rules, not only in, board war games, but in miniature games, you often run into, usually it seems like they're optional rules because they weren't play tested as much, or because in play testing, you couldn't get as consistent or satisfactory of a result if you use that rule, if that makes any sense, which it probably doesn't.
Well, okay. And, Gettysburg's a good one because there's one that I can go down a long road with. Okay. And that was going to be one of the things I was going to bring to the table here was I'm not even going to say the game because anybody's played it's going to know which one I'm talking about. And I have not played it. I'm not killing John Reynolds. If he gets killed, he gets killed, but I'm not killing him on day one at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. So we've talked about this too. Forced events are not random. Or are we talking about this with the Russian campaign, right? Because there are optional / external rules that kind of affect gameplay, but not like in that sense of X city falls, place, one Russian unit in X city, regardless of what's going on, or, so-and-so dies in battle, remove this counter. No, if they're not in battle, no, that's stupid. And I absolutely agree with you on that. If it's something like, oh, there's a second front in Italy, you should probably pull these units off the board. Maybe not, or what have you. But yeah, I think we did talk about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
In the Russian campaign talk?
Yeah, we talked.
We were talking about the Russian campaign?
I think we brought this up a couple times over the last 2 years about.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Forced events that ignore the context of the game that you're playing specifically. Because as soon as you get past game one or turn one, everything's a what if, period. Right.
And I think a lot of people, when they play Gettysburg games, they holler about, well, you know what? If you don't put any stringent advanced locations on the Army of Northern Virginia, they're going to win Gettysburg every time on the first day. 99 out of 100 times they're going to win it on the first day. And I played a lot of games where, I've had that happen where I'm just, not every game has that though, but I know there's games out there saying, well, no, it's better you don't advance the game, advance the Confederacy past this point around the town of Gettysburg before dark on, July 1st or whatever.
It depends on if you've got those kind of like instant, kill switch style automatic game winning conditions, right? Because I ran into that playing Avalon Hills. Was it Avalon Hill Gettysburg, or was that Across 5 Aprils, or was that Blue and the Gray? I don't remember. But there's a couple where, you can absolutely you're supposed to take the town of Gettysburg by, sunset on July 1st, and you win. Okay, that's easy. I'm just going to waltz around Beaufort and go hang out in Gettysburg. But I've also had weird instances where the Confederates control the town of Gettysburg and then the Union don't necessarily set up a fishhook. Maybe stuff goes awry and Longstreet can't make his end run south. Who knows?
Callendale completely flipping the battle lines when he played Last Chance for Victory.
I'm trying to catch up with the chat.
I've been looking through it too. I'm kind of like with Stigler, random as the abilities go, let the players figure out, that's kind of cool. Then there's no focus, you're not.
I like old chestnuts.
And I'm sure most would agree that, you've got to have command rules in games like that when you're getting down to those kind of details and stuff like that. But, and also to your comment about Uncle Dan, we're probably two people in the entire world that believe that his move was proper.
Absolutely.
And I will argue that to the end of time.
I think Longstreet gets blamed a lot for not making his way around the Union southern flank there constantly. I think that was the scapegoat reason that people latched onto when Longstreet wasn't just like a rabid, when he got labeled as a carpetbagger because he essentially didn't want to yell, "The South will rise again" for the rest of his life, and he got attacked a whole bunch for that. I think the thing people latched onto was, oh, well, we lost Gettysburg because Longstreet couldn't get onto, Little Round Top and Big Round Top fast enough. You know why? Because Dan Sickles was what?
You could add dozens of rules to Gettysburg that would be optional.
Yeah.
That could have, in fact, been historical had certain things been allowed to happen. But I don't want to. We started to drift there. I don't want to drift.
No, I'm just ranting that the reason Longstreet didn't get around there was because Dan the Man was in the peach orchard. But yeah.
Todd, what else are you digging out up there? I know you got some other stuff you've noted down.
Well, I was I was looking at my OCS games. I haven't played them enough to know, and so you guys, I just been looking at some of the optional rules in OCS, just to kind of like, well, what the heck are they including there? Because those, to me, those are, I know. But like for example, they have one, tigers are thirsty. So all German tank units marked with the notation tiger in the center must always be fueled by 1 T per unit method. I mean, so, and it appears that all of these are kind of like that, just like, but so they're a little bit of a changer. The air and paras can't coordinate or spot for hip shoots in 44, but they can in 45 because, they probably weren't doing that much of that when they were landing anyway. So, again, but just kind of adds a little bit of historicity to it, but you do have to remember it, and I don't know. That's interesting.
So optional rule, historical or realism? I mean, an optional. Okay, your tiger fueling rule. Okay,
yeah,
that's realism to me. I mean, that would make sense to apply that. Okay. And Kev's going to open up on this. I know he is. But why would you just not naturally put that rule in there?
Well, that's what Stigler's saying about GBACW fatigue and artillery proximity to enemy units. Just make it a rule. But I'll be quiet, Kev.
No, I have no issue either way. If it's some people don't want to deal with that level of minutia. They want to play the system series rules, and they want to have less overhead for all the extra stuff, because you've got the module, right? You've got the module rules, and then you've got the optional module rules, and then you've got and then you've got the optional series rules, and then the optional house rules for OCS.
And then you have the magazine rules.
And then and then you've got the special optional magazine rules, and then you've got the knucklehead rules, where some rules lawyer goes, well, I was there. I know more than you do. I know more than you do. This is what there's no way it could have happened any other way. Right? So,
well, there's there's got to be a case in point, and I'm gonna go back to the tiger rule. I like the realism behind that, causing you to consume more, which it was definitely. East Front, definitely. Sure. But how many? Look, did those tigers break down a lot? Right? There's rules in. Well, they did, but they were more reliable than everyone thought. There's now new evidence coming out saying that the tigers weren't as bad as everyone thought. So just because some dude goes, well, I read a book once, I just did with this book. I just said, oh well, look, there was some guy that said that Rommel knew, right? Okay. Big freaking deal, Kevin. Right?
I read Belton Cooper, and your Sherman just caught fire randomly.
Right. So I think the cool thing about our hobby is you've got all these awesome dudes who do all that research, and then then someone who's smart goes, okay, bro, calm down. Let's just move all of that into optional rules. And let's have a very clean, awesome, sexy game that everyone can play. And then let's the nutcases like yourself can go mess around with all this other stuff, and you can go delve into the minutia, right?
Let's make the game playable.
Right. Because we want to be consumable, right? Like in Normandy, what an amazing experience for a monster game. You can sit down and play so much of that, and have a great experience, and it's a freaking monster game, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've just done 5 turns. How cool is that?
Yeah. Well, and I think I get that kind of impression. I don't know Dan, the guy that designed it, but just based on just the detail, I think I'm not saying he's a crazy guy, but I'm sure he obviously he's done way more research on Normandy than I've ever done and will ever do. and he saw a lot of that stuff. And like one of them was commandos can add +1 to an attack against an entrenchment or something. But if I'm assuming this game was developed, it's GMT, so they seem oftentimes, in my experience, have done a good job with that. So I think that's probably exactly what happened. They're like, hey, let's take this out, let's put this, and so it's now playable. Yeah, that's interesting. Another one I was looking at, and I didn't realize they had this. I just happened to pull it open just to, so like Panzer, right? The Panzer series, which I know. So I knew they had that. So I don't know, McMurray, if you know, or Jeff, but they have basic and advanced. So the basic rules are, whatever, a few pages, and it's primarily focused around tanks. I mean, Panzer's kind of a tank game, armor game, really, obviously by the name. And each unit is a squad, so you could
each unit's a tank.
Well, each unit's a tank. Each infantry is a squad.
Yeah.
So like ASL and all the other things.
Yep.
However, but that doesn't. We don't need to get into details. So they have basic, and then advanced starts to include infantry and artillery and a bunch of other stuff, spotting and stuff. So I thought, well, that's not really optional. They're just making it so that it's playable with both types. Well, then I didn't realize that they had a whole book of optional rules. I was like, I didn't even know that was a part of it. I thought they were all just basic and advanced. So this goes into turreted vehicle hit locations and turrets and Soviet early war communications. And I mean, it's
morale and command control and all that. Yeah, that's
16
awesome.
pages, company HQ, regimental HQ. And I found that pretty interesting. It's already it just lets you, I don't know, to me, this is Chrome. That's what I was trying to say here. This goes into the Chrome element.
Not necessary, but if you want to get more detail, there it is.
Yeah. Like
how many pages is that optional rule book?
Like ASL includes turret hits and all that stuff. So that's just a part of their game. But here, because they're not trying to be ASL, but it's fun if you want to do it. Like, I can turn the turret. So, but you don't have to. So I feel like that kind of optional rule is Chrome versus these optional rules are more historical.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, Todd. I think there's a lot of value. I still think there's a lot of value in making a game playable and accessible. As for war gamers, we're not saying that if you're a Euro gamer that you should go and buy Normandy. Please don't, right? Because play something else first and get your feet wet. But even for folks like us that like meatier, chunkier games, being able to get through at a con or by yourself, get through a whole campaign in a couple of days is a great feeling. And then if you want to go back to it, now you can go back to it and actually play it again, right? First of all, and then what happens if I add in that extra rule for the commandos and the breakdown units? And
can go a long way to increase with replayability.
Yeah, it's
hands
awesome,
down.
Right? Yeah,
that's exactly what I thought of Battle for Normandy when I saw that as I was learning it 2 years ago. I was like, dang, man, you could play this over and over again. I mean,
yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, now I haven't been down the Normandy campaign or the Battle for Normandy yet. It's still sitting up there smiling at me, but I'm still very fond of Day of Days, and I think that took a monster. Didn't overkill it with the rules. Right. I like the system of core scenario or core game, and then you throw in a few optional. Now here's a question. That book of Chrome that you showed on Panzer, the optional rules, would you all say that depth of optional rules is better suited to these tactical level games like Squad Leader, Panzer, as opposed to a monster game like anything in OCS or GBACW? Because you can go pick out realism that's not included in the core rule. Granted, so GBACW is tough enough as it is. All right. And then while granted there's a bunch of stuff out there that could be added in to provide more realism, you would stretch that game, I think, beyond a lot of players' limits.
Right. Well, what's that game? The Longest Day from Avalon Hill, right? I've never played it, but isn't it like company level or something? And it takes forever to play. And it's super detailed and complicated, and everyone raves about how awesome it is, but very few people have actually played it, right?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Amen, brother. Well, I just sitting there thinking about SCS as well. I don't think there are very many optional rules in SCS games.
No, that's the thing. The core rules, and then whatever. I guess whatever they wanted to put, whether it was optional or not, they stuck it in the scenario or the game box rules.
It seems like usually there might be one or two back with the designer's notes, but not many. No.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, which is interesting to me because that's such a simple game system that to me it wouldn't be hard to like. One optional rule I always think would be nice is unit integrity or something. So you're kind of forced to keep battalions together and that's I understand why they don't do it and it's fine and it's what it is. But I sometimes think, gosh, it wouldn't be hard. Doesn't seem like it'd be hard to include that.
And that's one of those things you can just do by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think because it's so simple and many of them you don't have. Yeah, I think.
I was about to say I did that on one of my playthroughs of Bastogne, right? Instead of making German Death Star armored units, right, where you pull the armored battalion or whatnot out of every, or the armored regiment out of every. It had to be a battalion if we were playing. Bastogne, but so you take that 8 or 7 strength tank unit out of each of your armored formations and you stack those into a stack and you just start smashing the shit out of stuff. It's a really easy way to do stuff. But then if you want to be more honest about it, okay, we should probably keep these together because all of a sudden how would that work with their command and control and all that stuff?
Right. Well, SCS is kind of that funky point where it's almost like I felt like Dean created a system for guys to go play a game while the other side is moving their pieces in OCS, right? It's like, hey, here's a system. Now, I know you guys are sitting around for 4 hours, so here's a system that you can just go play a game while you're because when you play serious OCS opposed, the opposition leaves the room while you have your turn, right? I mean, that's
seems like it'd be better to play 2 games simultaneously. Like you guys are the Germans in this game, and we're the Americans in this other game. Yeah, and then we're gonna swap.
Anyway, so I just think it's light enough. I don't know that I've played SCS game that's ever sort of mapped to anything historical ever, but that's okay. Some of them are fun. Like they're fun. Once again, it's a puzzle to work out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in OCS, SCS is with what I was talking about earlier, where that for the most part, that system allows me to play the way I want to, Right. Now, Stigler makes a good point. The fatigue in GBACW, it is listed as an optional rule. And he's right. That rule should be a core rule because you're talking.
So why isn't it?
I don't know. Really don't. I've never posed to ask that question, but the fatigue is just you've got to have that in that game because those troops cannot fight 24/7. Although they did do some miraculous things during the Civil War with marches and going into engagements, you've got to have fatigue in there, or else you're having them in the front line all the time, and your casualty counts start to get massive. And
so that's what's nice about again that World War II German stuff. You don't have to worry about fatigue. Man. You have a special rule called Pervitin.
And there's games that have that stuff in it. And the other thing too is command and control. I mean, I guess you can get to a certain level where you can play without necessarily having command and control. Like where a game just takes a simple, just make sure you can trace the supply line. It doesn't matter how many hexes back to this source. And I know SCS does that. And that's it. Then there's really no command out of that unless you get isolated or cut off, and then of course they relate that to supply. But I think a majority of games need to have. Well, I don't understand.
You can command and control like you have to be within X number of hexes of a commander or something like that.
If there's headquarters units in the game or something like that, you got to Civil War, Napoleonics, anything definitely pre-World War II. I mean, I think you have to have command and control. Because we weren't talking radios yet, I mean, I think the Soviets in World War II are a prime example of something that can be a failure if you incorporate command and control rules for Soviet armored units. I mean, because waving flags isn't always going to work. So, I
mean, I did like Kev's question about so why did they make it optional?
I think it goes back to that salient point that we all seem to be dancing around, where optional rules are fantastic as long as they either increase or maintain a level of fun in the game without raising the level of complication to the point where that's not why we started playing that game, right?
Yeah. So, Kev, what did you have an answer in mind when you asked why not include fatigue in GBACW? I mean, why not?
No. I didn't. I was just curious. I was curious why it isn't, because it's critical, right? Every game in that era,
well,
prior has fatigue.
Yeah. Well, and you start fatiguing. And I remember the first time I played the newer system when I came back of GBACW, I understood what the fatigue rules did, but I was marking every stinking regiment instead of just the brigade as a whole. So you might have one regiment is the only one that conducts an activity in a turn or in a phase, and it causes that whole brigade fatigue. So it's sort of an accumulative thing that affects the entire brigade, which I get it, because if you try to do it individual, which I did the first time, I think it was Cedar, it might have been Cedar Mountain, I think I was playing, where I just had every regiment marked with fatigue 1, 2, 3. And then I realized, oh shit, you only mark the brigade leader, and the entire brigade is how the fatigue is suffered. And then after that, once I realized what I was doing, a lot of times too, it's, okay, let's go back to, all right, come on, let's make the game playable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a little debate going on, and I don't know the game at all, but how much record keeping there is. So I'm going to just step away from GBACW and say maybe that is another reason sometimes that you don't include something that's you think should be in there, because maybe there is a record keeping element, or maybe it's just we kind of touched on this, but it's just a little too much overhead for some. So I don't know, but it kind of depends on.
Yeah. Like the Avalon Hill Gettysburg Advanced game, you need a workbook to play that game every time you play it, because you've got all the fatigue, you've got ammo marker, or you've got ammo tracks for every unit in the game. Like I can absolutely understand where that gets to be the epitome of, okay, this isn't necessarily super duper fun to play anymore.
Yeah. And why no one plays that. And
yes. Why everything you read on BGG is, well, the chunk that I got through, I ran into this. The chunk that I got through, I ran into this. If it weren't for Jeff's heart possibly going out if he managed to get through an entire game of that, I think you're about the only person I could think of that would still go for it, Jeff.
That's one game there where, as much as I would love to be able to read the, okay, all right, so right here. Okay.
All right, everyone hold. Everyone stop.
Everybody has issues. That game. I did not.
What is
I think
Jeff?
the rules are laid out in the proper order, and this is a gem of a game.
Say what it is.
I'm looking at optional rules.
Yeah, can you say the title on it? It's kind of hard to read.
I'm sorry. The Army of the Heartland, John Rottos from Clash of War. Operational. This was, I mean, of course, you know who did these maps. You'll immediately know it's a good game with barter maps in it. But I remember when I got that and I was doing research, it was everything I read was a negative towards the rules. Too difficult. Can't understand them. All right. Now, maybe just my screwy brain was just screwed up enough for me to be able to understand the rules to this game, because I did. And I enjoyed it. I think it's a phenomenal system. And I know there was a little piece back there a couple months back where everybody was looking for that game. And I'm like, what changed? You didn't have the game to read the rules. What changed your mind to make you want to get that game and learn how to play?
Hexy.
So,
yeah, baby.
It was you. It was you playing it and enjoying it.
I did like it very much. So I like Look Away too, even though it was awful. The map was awful simple and clean. So, Todd, GCACW, basic, advanced.
Yeah. Okay. So again, the only time I played is that one time you and I played. So that's, to me, that basic and advanced is kind of like the Panzer, where they're adding things like burning. What do they do? Tearing
bridges.
The bridges and the supply depots and the railroad depots and all that. So, I mean, and I think there's more in there about, but I don't even know because I've not played it. So to me, but that game, to me, I'm like, having only played it one time, I was like, dude, there's so much game in the basic game. And I think Patrick Pence, who's done more videos on than anyone in the world about it, I think they play a lot of their games with the basic, and that guy has been playing for 15 years or whatever, 20 years. I mean, that guy knows that game. So to me, that's a testament about that whole game design. But it then just tells me that now the thing with that is Panzer allows you to play all the scenarios, I believe, with both optional. I mean, both sets of rules, right? I think. Whereas at GCACW, the scenarios are basic or advanced. I don't think you can
Right.
go back to a basic one and play the advanced. Right. So,
Right. Well, the other cool thing about Panzer though is that you can also pick and choose your advanced rules.
yeah,
So-
it's modular.
It's modular. So if you want to use morale and not command and control, you can. If you want to use turrets and deck hits, you can. If you want to use all the all those special rules, you can use them all. It's up to you.
So this kind of, I don't know if it originated as a miniature game, but it's like a miniature game. So,
Yeah,
Kev,
exactly.
you and I've discussed, I'll be playing a miniature game and you're like, wait, what rule? Wait, are you just making up rules? Because, I kind of add because
Right.
because it's easier to do that in miniature games than in board games. Well, to me, Panzer is that way. So like the reason you might use turrets and sometimes not is maybe you read a account that turrets were hit a lot in that particular battle. So that would, who knows? I'm just making something up. But
Sawyer says swap out rules. Are you telling me that like in that system, you might have a core rule that reflects one mech mechanic, but now here's an option rule where you can just trash that rule?
No, it doesn't work that way. No.
And I don't think that's what he means by that necessarily.
You can just choose before you start play. You go, okay, this game, I really don't want to have to keep track of command points and morale. I'm not going to use it, and it'll play just fine. But I am going to do all of the advanced targeting and hitting, and there's even variable penetration rates. So like if I want to, you can you roll 3 dice and it will move by up to 5, I think it is, your penetration rate, or down by 5. So you
Tank
might
charts did that.
Right, exactly. Right. So you've got this variable penetration rate that adds on or subtracts from your basic penetration rate, which means all of a sudden when you're shooting at that T-34 and you don't have a really good chance of killing it, you now have a possibility that you might, if you roll those 3 dice the right way, you might just get the extra points to get that lucky shot. So you can make a choice to do that, or that's what he's saying.
Does that make sense, Jeff? Kind of
Yeah. I'm trying to catch some of these quotes here because I don't know. Maybe I have I don't grok rules. I mean, short sets of rule books. I can, like for example, Band of Brothers, I hadn't even looked at the rules. And last Friday night, I set a game up with you sitting here online, and I played a game and was pretty. I thought for the first 9 pages of rules, I thought my efficiency was pretty good at it. So I mean,
I was so proud of you.
You gotta love that. All right, and now we're both after it again. But I mean, I don't know. If you told me to go to my shelf and say, hey, you need to play a game or play a game where you're not banging your head against optional rules, or you're not banging your head against thousands of variants or whatever, okay? And the core rules are maybe not deep, but they're enough to give you some decent play. I'm going to go grab an SCS title every time. And I've read with the 300 plus games I got here in the room, I don't know what else other than that blue and gray box that McMurray's sending me that he just got.
That I'm sending you? I sent you that picture so that you could see it and be happy for me.
So, I mean, I don't mind simplicity, but at the same time, hey, give me OCS here. Tunisia's going to stay right there. I'm not bored with it. It's not upsetting me. I'm finding with and Kev, I chatted with you online about it one night on Facebook about they got supply right.
Yeah.
In this system.
Yep.
I don't know of any other game. EFS is not bad, but it's not this.
Nope.
And making my brain think over those rules for supply it's making the game more fun because I'm like, shit, I can't do both of these things. I need to do this.
Right. One or the other, or some variation of. Yeah.
That's funny, Stigler. Stigler says, to quote Richard Berg, make shit up. We do. It's pretty fun. Yeah. Hey, Jeff, I'm excited about your optional rule where you're sending me Tunisia too when you're done. Thanks, bud. I am curious about that. I just was watching Justigard or whatever his name is. Justin, I think. He does a lot of good videos, but he's getting into the OSG Napoleon's Napoleon Last Gamble. Kev, have you played that, or Jeff, have you played the OSG Napoleon series?
Yeah, I've got 4 or 5 of them.
Do they have optional rules in that? They seem like a game that would have that.
I only played the Battle of Theme, which was a cutout from Napoleon Retreats, I think.
Right.
And it was, but now I haven't touched any of the ones that have been. Matter of fact, Walt sent me. He sent me 2 of them, man. He sent me Napoleon: The Four Lost Battles and Napoleon's Last Gamble, or Napoleon Leipzig and Napoleon's Last Gamble. And so I definitely want to play those. Like I said, I'm stuck in. I got an OCS kick thing going on right now, so
that's awesome, though. That's cool.
Yeah, Nordic. Let us know if there's optional rules. But Kev, do you know if they're?
Not really. There's not. It's a system, right? And so it's built on something from 1976.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow.
And it's now the new box art and the new rules formatting and all that is really cleaned up and really a lot better to play with. But I'm not a huge fan of the game system per se. I think there's some modified rules that some dudes have written that sort of fix it, right? I don't know. I love the OSG stuff that's the next level up, that's more campaign operational scale. I really enjoy that. But the Library of Battles stuff, it just being able to all this retreating and no DE, like it's very hard to kill something, and I don't know, the scales just doesn't. I get fussy with it, so it's a personal problem I have with this system. It's not that it's bad, because everyone loves it. Right? Like I've never met a person that doesn't love it. It's just me. I don't get it. So I don't like it.
I know most of Dean's games, system games or series games, his core rules are pretty stable.
Right.
Yeah.
And and if they update the version, and I like some of this new formatting that they're doing with certain companies are doing, where they're commenting a change in a new updated version, where you can pretty much just go read the change. If you knew and mastered the rule book previously, you just gotta. But I'm not big on games where you had your core rules and you stayed within the system, and then you just kept drastically changing them per game that came out.
Yeah.
Which is why I go back to SCS core rules, campaign or scenario, or game rules, whatever. I can't remember them changing the core other than with version changes. And I think OCS is the same way.
They're revisions, right? And I think OCS is just cleaning up like each time. There might be some minor revisions that fix things that people hack, right? To limit gaminess. And there's a lot of interpretation that goes on in those rules, right? With OCS and all those more complex systems, guys get super lawyery on all of that. But the OSG stuff, Napoleonics, it's a creaky, to me, it's every bit of 45, nearly 50 years old. And I think we've learnt a lot when we look at Hexasim and other companies that have brought out new systems that I think are better, just at a tactical level for Napoleonics.
So, interesting.
Like Blind Swords, right? Herman Luttman's going to do freaking Napoleonics, right? So that's going to be, we're using the Blind Swords or whatever he's calling them, whatever the latest variation on his scales, different scales are. That's going to be cool.
He ought to pull that off good using that system. I'm just curious though, because I think Fearful Slaughter. Not Fearful Sacrifice.
Yep.
What a freaking! I mean, when I look at that game, and as much as I love what I played with Civil War, it's like, even though that game is the American Civil War, it's like that game's not the American Civil War. It's like a whole new genre of Civil War. I mean, it changed the face of everything in Civil War gaming, and it still gave you a great historical feel of how things happened, just by looking at a couple of cards and a couple of different events.
Yeah, I think the chaos factor is what either people love or hate about it, because there's so many little elements in there that can cause things to go awry, which happened, right? So I love that. I love that about the system.
Well, the old CWBS from MMP, every time I talk to somebody about that, Oh, I love it. And I do. I love the rules writing in that game, because if you want to play something solo where you can, you have your plan, Evening Joey, and you want your plan to go astray and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it, play CWBS and write those orders and try to get out of them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, you mentioned earlier on, oh, dang it. No, I forgot. What was it? Oh, GCACW. Those advanced games have just gotten more and more complex. I think that it's almost too overwrought. You know, sometimes you've got 40 pages, 50 pages of advanced rules, and sometimes 25% of that's weather, right? You know, with all these special rules for weather, whether it's sunny, and then the next turn, if it was wet, now it's sunny. like, stop. It's just making my life way too hard. And lots of little special grindy detail rules that really lock you up, right? You talk about wanting to be able to play the game. I prefer the basic rules in GCACW, and then I look at the advanced rules and go, okay, well, what are we trying to do there, and what do I have to use to get the historical flavor? I set a GCACW game up the other day. Well, actually, not the other day, 60 days ago, and it sat there for 60 days because I literally could not work out what my opening move should be, and it just got so frustrating. I was looking at the advanced rules, and I was like, you know what, this is bullshit. I just packed it up and put it away. Right? Just game over.
Wow.
Well, and you can have all the control in the world, but if you don't play the game because it doesn't look fun or you can't figure out what you want to do, there's no point.
Right. You know, I was just like, this is ridiculous. If I do this, then that happens. If I do that, then this happens. And then if they do that, this happens, and then it's game over. So why am I doing this? So it was a bad choice of scenario or something. I don't know. Right.
But I've got one that I've set up and tried to play that just, I'm sorry, I can't. I've got one that I tried to play. It was reading the rules. And then I've got an old one that I want to play, but because of the opportunity fire rules are, I won't touch it. But Gallipoli 1915.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I want to play that so bad, and I tried to play it. I'm sorry. That is just way, way too much. Yeah. And then Mech War 77, and what's the other one they got from SPI? Big old
Red Star, White Star.
I never had that, but I know Mech War. You had to pre-program your opportunity fire lanes, and I'm like, no, because to me that now if I got this freaking M60 tank and here's his zone or this platoon or whatever, and here's their opportunity fire zone, well, I'm just not going to move my Russians through there, you know.
Right.
And so I can't find a way to play that game as much as I'd love to. Firefight is another one. So
Firefight's a bit like that too, isn't it? Yeah.
And I've got them, but I'd love to play them, but I just can't. But Gallipoli, I want to play that so bad.
Well, I don't know what happened to that game because I saw that being play tested for several years up at Seattle, and I watched guys play it with the designer, and he was super excited. I chatted to the designer, and I was like, "Wow, this looks really cool! I can't wait to order it." And then my buddy, I didn't pre-order it because I started hearing things. My buddy got it. He called me. He goes, "You can have it for $5. Take it off my hands," right? Because it just blew up in terms of everything. So I don't know what went sideways there. It didn't look that complicated when I saw the playtest, but
Well, it falls right in suit to me with the 1914 series too. I can't get my head around those rules completely. I know Clay loves that stuff though. But then again, you're talking to the guy here that is not sold on the Simonich 4X games. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they take getting used to, but they're interesting. Yeah.
That's good stuff, guys. I mean, hey, an hour is what I really hope we'd shoot for an hour. And that was, I kind of wanted to throw that out there because more or less hearing what you all were going to say about this. And granted, my statement at the top, throw everything out, that was not necessarily, I wanted to throw that there maybe to get the creative juices flowing. Okay. I mean, I agree that there are option rules that I think are awesome. I think it's going to be what the player's attitude is in playing a game. Because look, majority of the Hex Encounter gamers out there, they don't want to play a game for 3 months. They prefer to play it in one sitting. or maybe over a couple of days. A lot of them don't have the room to set up a big game and just leave it there for months. It can't be done. Stigler's going to say play it on Vassal. Okay, we know that's coming. All right, those that can do that, I'm one of those that can't. God knows I've tried. Joey, I think, put up with me twice, and Kev put up with me once trying to do that, and I just couldn't do it. So there are optional rules that fit. There's variants. I play a lot of computer games that have variants that give you, hey, here's a hypothetical situation. What if these 3 Panzer divisions were added to this attack or this campaign or whatever, this front or this area, whatever? And they're cool. I look at them, but I don't play them. I've always been that one. Give me my historical setup. Give me my reinforcements as they arrived historically. That's cool. Give me my objectives, and let me see if I can accomplish what you're asking without all of the add-in to it. Then again, and we'll go back to the SPI, the Drive on Stalingrad. Do I want to play that one again? Older, yeah, I know, and doesn't get the best ratings. Still a good-looking game, and I clip the counter so well in it. Do I want to go back and apply that Hitler's directive, or do I want to pull out Stalingrad 42 and play that, or a couple other case blues that I have laying around here, and apply some of these optional rules to that? So like I say, I think it's going to be player-based if you want it. If you want the expansion of time played to get a turn done, all right, great. Do it. All right. If you can leave that thing up and play it, I can walk in this room, I can play 10 minutes, walk away, and I'll come back until 2 days later and play another 10 minutes. All right. A luxury that not everybody has. But I also want to come in here, i.e. like this band of brothers, and sit down and I roll through 4 or 5 turns, and I just completed the entire game, and I got something out of it. Right. So I think it's going to be up to the player whether or not let's use this optional rule. I don't want an optional rule. I don't want a hypothetical rule to be an optional rule. Let's make it a variant. Let's make it a hypothetical. Let's make it, hey, you want to try this here. This could potentially happen if you applied this. If you give me an optional rule, I'm going to be one of those people that says, at least make it realistic. Don't give me something that's just not going to be realistic. Stick that in that hypothetical crap again. So that's me. Everybody's going to have their own different taste. So.
Yeah, I prefer not. I don't like the what if stuff so much, really. But
well, of the 4 of us sitting here right now, well, we know Andrew will play freaking any genre of any year, of any war, of any battle, even if it hasn't happened yet or it didn't happen. He'll do it. He'll recreate it, whether it's in miniatures or what. He'll do it.
Jeff, I'll send you this game if you play War at Sea once. You can get it for $10. You have 300 games. One $10 game that you find on the geek market's not going to kill you.
I bought Pacific War because I needed something to punch and didn't have a game to punch.
That's my point. God, first off, that's
terrible. I'm re-clipping games that have already clipped.
There's a lot to unpack there.
I've got freaking. What's the red box game from OCS?
Hungarian Rhapsody.
I clipped that at 2.0s. I'm out there almost done re-clipping it to 3.0.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Okay.
You have issues, bro.
The intervention is coming tomorrow, apparently. Jesus, buddy.
I'm booking a flight.
Yeah. Like, Todd, you gotta come over here. We gotta start driving.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm waiting for y'all to come out here. Yeah, I'm telling you, I know y'all have already got stuff going on, and I'm still burning in my brain the GBACW people. They're having the GCACW people out there in, I think it's the second weekend through the third weekend of July.
Yep.
Up in Gettysburg. And it's after the days of the battle, so you don't have to worry about that crowd. But they're going to be doing both of them. I think Kenneth Lee's going to be up there. I don't think Patrick's going to be out there. I think he's going to be somewhere else. But Ken Lee's going to be there, and of course the GBACW guys. And like I said, I've been to 2 of them. And y'all know my deal. It's cool. I like to go down there and do it, and I'll play. But I'm one of those that, man, I'm going to go back to my room and solo what I'm playing because I just have more fun. It seems like
what we need to do.
A good bunch. And Dick Whitaker, I met Dick Whitaker. He's phenomenal. This dude's awesome. So think about that stuff in July if you and I tell you guys get up this way in July or anytime.
What we need to do is we need to like go set up a Gettysburg game in the middle of the battlefield in July when it happened. Then we can all go put on reenactor uniforms and try and play through that whole game in the sun, and the last guy to get heat stroke wins.
I'm not into that crap. I will tell you this though: when I was a kid, Terrible Swift Sword, my favorite game. All right, the original. Me and a buddy that had. That's how I got into it. We tried to play Terrible Swift Sword in 20-minute turns with the clock on July 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Back when I was
my God, had that.
That lasted about till 9:45 or 9:40 in the morning on the first day, because then you get so many units you just can't. I mean, it's either that or you were leaving stuff behind or you weren't firing, or so that did not last. We didn't get through the lunchtime on July 1st. So, but I remember trying to. So I can't do it. I mean, I'd rather stand here over my board and ponder and ponder and ponder and think, and then make a couple. Maybe I make a couple moves and then I walk away.
Right. That's the joy of solo, right? It's fun that way. Yeah.
All right. Matt, I don't know, man. They just had WBC just here recently, just over the hill, and I didn't go. So they were telling me they're having a summer one over here in Baltimore, in Maryland somewhere.
World Board Gaming Championships, WBC.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. No, that one hadn't come up. But you're right. My bad. Good call, Todd.
Though Peter does say sea kelp now reclipping is a warning flag of instability.
It is. Good thing I live alone.
Yeah.
Stigler, are you talking about Gettysburg? Because if you are, that could be the flipping point for me to get my butt up there. So, and they got tour guide Phil, who is part of the Shenandoah Valley group. I played with him. He's a good fella. He's going to be taking the people on tours of Gettysburg while they're up there playing. So, but I don't know how much of they've got Devil's Den and Little Round Top still shut down. I saw some video clips of what they've done to the trails there. Look really, really, really cool. A little more accessible. So, all right, good stuff. Kev, thank you for hopping on here with us tonight. We appreciate that. Appreciate
your awesome.
Stuff. Andrew, good stuff out of you, man. This is we seem to do pretty good with this, man, without berating each other too much while we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, we got to get that out of the way the first 10 minutes, and then we'll revisit it every 20 minutes or so after that.
And Todd, your intellectual input is always appreciated. Right?
You know that this was a serious conversation. Kev, you should feel honored. Jeff put on a shirt with sleeves because he knew you were going to be here.
I am so impressed.
Look at that.
I dress for the occasion as well, so it's good.
All right, we're going to kill this. Hey, everybody, thanks for showing up. Stig, Nord, Matt, Joey, all of y'all that popped on here. Appreciate it. Walt, good. Always good to see you, man. And we'll talk to y'all next time we decide to do this. If y'all think of a topic that you want to hear us argue about, fire me off an email, post something in one of the videos or something, post one to the comment section of this, and we'll come up with an idea. We're not going to do an every week show. You know how we are. We go live. We just go live out of the blue. But if y'all give us something that you'd really like to hear us goof off about, we'll try to pre-plan that one. We'll check all of our planners to make sure we have time. All right. Talk to y'all later. Peace.
See ya.